What is up, you guys? My name is Brian. I'm joined by Thomas McGuigan and Chris Moreno, and this is Off the Court. Today, we're going to talk about the last round here, the Eastern Conference semifinals and the Western Conference semifinals, as well as give our takes on the finals matchups for the Western Conference and the Eastern Conferences. How are you doing today, Chris?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you guys? What's going on?
We're doing well. How about you, Thomas?
I'm good, except you pronounced my last name wrong by a bit.
Okay, it's fine. Don't worry about it. We'll be all right. We'll be all right. It's a future adjustment. Okay. So last round, we saw 4 matchups that went very, very far and were some of the toughest we've seen, brought out some of the best games. Let's start off with one that went pretty quickly. The Milwaukee Bucks versus the Boston Celtics. A lot of people thought that the match was going to go maybe to 7 games, that the series was going to be very close, especially after the first game when the Celtics blew out the Bucks. But all of a sudden, the Bucks turned it around on them after Paul Pierce's comment saying that the series was over, and they ended up taking the next 4 games to win the series, 4-1. Chris, what's your take on that?
Paul Pierce was correct. The series was over after game 1. When the Celtics beat the Milwaukee Bucks in that game, you had Al Horford putting clamp-down defense on Giannis Antetokounmpo, and you know this guy is unstoppable. So once Al Horford came and he played great defense, they limited Giannis, and the Milwaukee Bucks just couldn't do anything. It almost seemed as if they weren't going to be able to pull the series out. But I don't know what happened with Boston. They just lost their persona. They didn't play good defense, and this is not a knock to the Bucks because they're a great team. They have great shooters. They have a great guy in Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think that's the 3rd time I've said that name. But Boston just wasn't able to pull us out. They lost 4 in a row. They just got swept, and Milwaukee just dominated. They showed their true colors, and this is going to be really challenging for the Raptors, but we'll get to that later. So.
And I think Paul Pierce kind of made a mistake. He made the number one mistake you make when it comes to these games, which is to never assume what's going to happen. Game 1 doesn't decide anything.
Exactly.
It can go so much further, so much more basketball at the play, as the Bucks proved. And the funny part was, the people really helped the team outside of Giannis was Pat Connaughton and George Hill. George Hill dominated the game. You could go ahead, you could look at Jaylen Brown's posters on Giannis. Great. You posterized them. But where are you now? You're at home on the couch watching the playoffs.
Oh, come on.
Thomas, what do you think?
Well, honestly, I don't like Pierce's attitude at all in terms of that because all he did was just assumed, hey, we're a great team, we're Boston, we're going to win against Milwaukee. But it's like, well, you didn't consider what Milwaukee had, you didn't prepare ahead of time, and you didn't have backup. So therefore, bye-bye.
That's right. He's right.
Paul Pierce is still competitive, like if he's playing in the league. I think he might need to move on. I understand he's an analyst now. So.
Paul Pierce over Kobe Bryant, right? Yeah. Okay. The next match we're going to talk about the East was the Toronto Raptors versus the Philadelphia 76ers. After the last series for the Sixers when they played Brooklyn, people thought the Sixers were a weaker team because they let Brooklyn take 1 game. However, they proved otherwise by pushing the series to 7 games. 7. Unbelievable. Behind the great play of Joel Embiid and Jimmy Butler. However, in Game 7, Philly caught the lead. Philly had the lead with about 11 seconds left, or 8 seconds left. I'm not really sure. Was it 8? I think it was 8 seconds.
It was 8 seconds, yeah.
8 seconds. They caught the lead off a Jimmy Butler layup. Toronto called a timeout, and went to the other side of the court to prepare. Kawhi Leonard comes up, gets the ball, runs off to the corner, breaking off a double team from Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid to hit the game-winning shot to send the Raptors to the Eastern Conference Finals. Just take a look at this.
You got to be aware of the inbounder here if you're Philly.
It's off to Leonard, defended by Simmons. Is this the dagger?
I mean, that's just unbelievable. Chris, what are your thoughts?
I think that was one of the greatest shots we've seen in NBA playoff history. Although, some may say that it was a lucky shot, which I sort of believe it was because of that soft bounce that he had.
4.
Yeah, 4, exactly. So everybody, if you look at the pictures, it was almost like Renaissance paintings. All of the people around Kawhi Leonard when he's squatting down, they're like, because you weren't sure if it was going in. It was one of the greatest shots we've seen. It wasn't a very high percentage shot. I wouldn't have wanted, if I was the coach, if I'm coaching Kawhi Leonard, I wouldn't want him to take that shot, no matter how great he is. But it was one of the greatest shots we've seen. I thought Philly was going to edge this series out. I feel like their team is just a bit deeper than Toronto, but Toronto came through. And the only thing I'm worried about is that Kawhi Leonard almost has to have a phenomenal game every other night to just beat the Philadelphia 76ers.
I think it's the same trend with every team so far.
Almost,
every
exactly.
series you've seen, there's got to be a player that puts up at least
Dominating.
25 or 30.
Exactly.
There's gotta be.
You look at the top 4 MVPs for the NBA playoffs. You have Damian Lillard, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Kawhi Leonard. And these are all players who are
putting up at least 30 points.
Putting up at least 30, and they're all still in the playoff race right now. So, the top 4 teams have the top 4, playoff MVP contenders. So, great series. Kawhi Leonard, amazing, phenomenal player, and it was just wonderful to see. I can't wait to see him take on the Bucks.
There was also a picture that came out of Drake during the middle of the game where he was wearing a Sixers jersey to try to do a reverse curse on the Raptors, and it worked surprisingly. Thomas, do you think the Drake curse is real? Whatever jersey he wears, that team loses?
No.
You don't think it's true?
Simply no.
Wow.
No, because he's just wearing a jersey. Even though he's like one of the greatest rappers of all time now, it's like that doesn't prove
Yeah,
he'll
one
win.
of. But
Okay.
yeah, it could be just a coincidence. Like we've seen, I
mean,
remember.
You got to look at the records of every team he's worn on his jersey.
I think he's undefeated.
He hasn't lost.
He hasn't lost.
He hasn't lost. He's never lost.
Back to back to back to back to back.
I bet he's going to lose one soon, though.
Oh,
Well, I just hope that he wears.
We'll see.
I just want to see him wear a Warriors outfit and see if that works. Because if that works, then the Drake curse to me is real.
It's true. I would agree
Plain
with
and
that
simple.
one.
Plain and simple.
Okay, let's shift over to the Western Conference now. Let's look at Golden State versus the Rockets. Golden State dominated the series early. The Rockets were giving them a little bit of a fight for it. Went to 6 games. And unfortunately, when Kevin Durant went down in Game 5 with the right calf strain, and he's expected to miss Games 1 and is unlikely to play Game 2 against the Portland Trail Blazers, you can see people automatically thought that Golden State was out. This was it. This was the chance for Houston to capitalize. Harden, Paul, Capella, everybody step up to take that lead. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case as Steph Curry and company closed out the match, closed out the series, and sent their team to the Western Conference Finals. Chris, what do you think?
I don't know where to start with the Houston Rockets, guys. Well, when Kevin Durant goes down in Game 5, you still have a chance to win that game. The Warriors should have been down 3-2 like they were last year. The Rockets were supposed to capitalize on this injury. Kevin Durant, obviously one of the best players in the league, arguably the best player in the playoffs right now, or the NBA. We'll see how LeBron comes back next season, but that's a different topic. But the Houston Rockets just lost everything. When Kevin Durant goes down, you lose Game 5. Okay, you're at the Oracle. You lose Game 5. Golden State edged that out with Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Andre Iguodala. But when you go back home for Game 6, you're supposed to capitalize on that injury. Now, we know that the Warriors won in 2015 without Kevin Durant. They lost in 2016 to LeBron James and the Cavaliers, but they played LeBron James and Matthew Dellavedova. That was their second best player in 2015. Yeah, they were still developing, the Splash Brothers, but they've never proven to win without Kevin Durant against a great team coming out of the East. And they were not supposed to win this series. The Houston Rockets with James Harden and Chris Paul. James Harden, who put up, 40 points almost every game last season. Yeah. You're supposed to come and do that in Game 6, and you didn't show up. Chris Paul balled out. He's your second best player. He's not supposed to be the guy to take you to that next level. That's James Harden's job. And the Rockets didn't do that. The Warriors, as great as their bench could be sometimes, Iguodala, Livingston, these guys are on the way out of the league. I'm not sure if they'll be here next year or 2 seasons after that. but they're not the same as they were before. And the Warriors, I'm just speechless. I'm not surprised, but I'm speechless about them edging this series out.
I agree with that. I'm very surprised by that as well. But do you think that could also harm Harden's chances at the MVP award? Even with this historic season, he couldn't close out for the semifinal and make it past second round.
Not at all. No. This is, the playoffs are separate. It's hard for us. Personally, we might hinder the chance. We might feel different about James Harden as the MVP or one of the top players in the league. But this regular season is a regular season. I still have Giannis over Harden, but we'll see how that happens at the NBA Awards this summer.
Yeah, let me just ask that question very quickly. Thomas, would you take Giannis or James Harden as the MVP for the NBA this season?
I don't follow those two players as much as I do with others, so if I were to guess, I would probably pick Giannis for now.
Okay. I will also take Giannis, but I think it's solely because of the reason that Harden just does not have that clutch ability to close out the games. And Giannis is a new hybrid type of player. He's physical inside like a center and a forward, and his shooting is improving and getting to the point of possibly being like a point guard. It's insane what he's becoming. He's becoming the next LeBron James, in my opinion.
He's like a water snake.
That's a unique description.
I like
but
that description. I
yeah.
like it. All right,
It's not like he
and-
can move, but he could swim like one.
Well, Giannis is great, no doubt.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And the final matchup for the Western Conference, the Portland Trailblazers versus the Denver Nuggets. A surprising series indeed after Portland was able to pull off an amazing feat by knocking out the Thunder in 5 games without Nurkic. It was incredible game, probably one of the best I've ever seen. In my book, that's one of the greatest shots I've seen. Damian Lillard just pulling up in Paul George's face to hit the game winner and win the series in Portland.
Cold-blooded.
Cold-blooded, ice in his veins. And back to the topic here, the Denver Nuggets were fighting back and forth with Portland to win this series. It went to Game 7. The Nuggets had a 17-point lead but blew it, where the Trailblazers took it back, ended up winning on C.J. McCollum's 37 points in the match. Damian Lillard did shoot 3 for 17 as well from the field, which is an abominable number. Do you think that's going to affect them going up against the Warriors?
Not at all. I think when Damian Lillard comes and steps on the court, he's the real deal. And like they asked him the other day about pressure, he doesn't really feel pressure. But this is the Golden State Warriors. This is a different animal you're facing. The Denver Nuggets, great team. Salute to them on the great season, reaching the second round and almost making it to the Western Conference Finals for the first time since, I believe, 2009?
2000.
2000, yeah, 2000. Okay, yeah. So looking at that situation, you have Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum just balled out. Cantor.
He's playing phenomenal, and Cantor's really filling the role for
Cantor
Nurkic.
is
Like I
filling that
said
role.
in the first version of the show,
Uh-huh.
for playoffs, I did state that if Enes Kanter can take over that role of Nurkic, Portland will be okay, and he has done very well at that.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to talk more about the Western Conference Final game in the next segment,
Mm-hmm.
but I just want to talk about this. Why do you think Denver lost, Thomas? Why do you think Denver couldn't pull up against Portland? Why couldn't they pull off the win?
Well, I pretty much think they lost because, well, for one thing, their defense was off, and especially once they got on defense or even to offense, like their shooting, they just kind of choked in a way. I mean, their shooting was better in the beginning. They were doing so well until then, in a way, they kind of froze up.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that.
I feel like maybe there was like external stress that they were feeling, like maybe in their personal lives or whatever. It's like you gotta learn to get rid of that stress for that particular time when you're in that moment, because if you have stress in your mind, wherever, it impedes your performance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then this is a new situation for them, obviously. We spoke about Denver versus San Antonio in the first round, and we sort of gave some of the edge to San Antonio because of the experience and Greg Popovich and players who have been there before.
They nearly pulled it off.
They nearly pulled it off too, exactly, with the late game fiasco without fouling or whatever that was in San Antonio. But Denver just didn't really have the experience. I feel like maybe if they had made it to the second round last year, if they had more experience with Jokic and Murray and all these players, they might have edged us out. But the guard play from Portland was just insane. They couldn't contain McCollum, and it just shows how at this stage in basketball, it's all dominated by guard play. You have a great player like Jokic, but bigs were sort of from the past. But that's no knock on Jokic or any of the great bigs from the league. But they just couldn't contain the guard play at all.
I 100% agree with that. I think Denver had a great collective group. I just don't think they were able to pull it well together to really knock out Portland the way they should have. They should have stuck together. They should have worked on closing out and boxing out the players that were really making an impact on Portland, which would be outside of Lillard, McCollum, Aminu, Harkless. Close out those guys to kind of isolate the match so you have an advantage to win. They failed to do that, and that's why they lost the series. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this ad.
Oh, man.
We've got a scorcher of a Sprite commercial here. Looks like they're calling for refreshment.
Big taste.
And here comes Big Taste.
Come on, Big Taste!
He looks a lot like LeBron James.
Speed right!
That is delicious.
Welcome back. Now we're going to give you our Western Finals prediction, our Eastern Finals prediction, and our Finals prediction for who will win it all, who's taking home the trophy this year. So let's start off with the Eastern Finals. The Milwaukee Bucks vs. Toronto Raptors. It's going to be a hard-fought match between Giannis and Kawhi. A defensive matchup matched with great shooting from the Bucks. It needs to be stopped by the Raptors. And this game I could see going to 7 easily. Chris, what do you think?
The X factor to this series. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Kyle Lowry.
I
Lowry.
absolutely agree with that.
This is the first time that the Toronto Raptors sort of have a legitimate shot at making it to the NBA Finals. We've seen them go up against LeBron in the last few years, who just shut him down. He just shut down the East every year, and he's not there this year. But now you have Giannis Antetokounmpo there, and this guy's the real deal. So when you're looking at the Toronto Raptors, I want to see Kawhi Leonard balling out, maybe scoring 30, 40 a game, but you can't rely on him solely to win this series. The Bucks, like you said, too much shooting. There's too much scoring coming from every cylinder for the Milwaukee Bucks. And plus, don't forget that you have Giannis coming in, taking 2 steps from the three-point line all the way to dunk the basketball. This guy's the real deal. So I'm going to just wait to see how Kyle Lowry's going to play. If he can ball out, maybe put 20, 8, 9 assists a game, we can probably see this Toronto offense dissect the Milwaukee Bucks. But the Milwaukee Bucks just look too strong. I see it going to 7 if Kyle Lowry can come out and ball. But if Kawhi Leonard is putting up 40, maybe 50 this series, he had the most points scored in the series.
Yes.
I think I think it's like 240 something. He just passed LeBron.
Yes, he's top 4.
Exactly. Yeah, he's up there with Michael Jordan, I believe Kareem, and this guy, if he's going to have to be doing that, if you're going to be relying on that, I don't see any shot of you winning this series. The Milwaukee Bucks are just a complete team.
Thomas, quick question for you. Okay, we're going to ask you really quick. Bucks or Raptors, who do you think is going to take in how many games?
I honestly think the Bucks are going to take in 4 games.
4 games. Think a full
4 to
sweep.
3. Like 4 to 3 because they seem to be evenly matched now.
So you're saying 7 games it's going to take?
Yes.
Okay, 7 games. Okay, Bucks and 7. What about you, Chris?
I'm going to take the Bucks in 6.
You're going to take the Bucks in 6?
Bucks in 6.
I'm going to take Milwaukee in 7. I think it's going to go 7. It's going to go back to Milwaukee. They're going to use that home field advantage to their advantage and win and go to the finals. Quickly with the Western Finals, we already know it's going to be Golden State, Portland. Very shocking. Steph Curry, Kevin Durant's missing the first 2 games. That's probably going to affect them. But we don't have a lot of time for that. We all know the basic circumstances. Who can win this, how to win, how each team can really close out and make it to the finals. Chris, who do you think's got it?
If Durant comes back for Game 3, I'm taking the Warriors in 6. If Durant is out for the first 2 games and then doesn't come back for Game 3 or maybe Game 4, I might take Portland to edge this out in 7. Kevin Durant is the X factor. It's a big if.
I agree. Thomas, what do you have? Golden State or Portland in how many games?
I think it's going to take in Golden State 6 games.
You think Golden State in 6?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to take Golden State in 5. I think the calf strain's going to affect them. I think the first game, Golden State's going to take advantage of that. They're going to win it. Portland will take advantage of Game 2 without Durant and win it at Oracle. But after that, it's all over because Kevin Durant will be back for Game 3, in my opinion, and they will clean sweep it. They'll make it to the finals. Now, the NBA Finals, very quickly. For you, your matchup is the Bucks versus the Warriors. Who's going to win it?
Kevin Durant comes back, the Bucks Warriors. I'm going to take the Warriors in this series. They might edge us out in 5 to me. If Kevin Durant is not back and the Portland Trailblazers make it, I might take Portland to edge the series out against Milwaukee in 7.
Wow, okay. That's a big shot. Thomas, what about you? You have it as the Bucks. Wait, you have the Bucks, right? Correct?
Yes.
Okay. You have the Bucks against the Warriors. Who's going to win?
The Bucks against the Warriors. Oh, that's tough, but I think the Warriors might win still.
How many games?
6 games.
Warriors in 6. Okay, that's a fair evaluation. I've got Bucks Warriors as well, and I'm going to say the Bucks in 7 pull off the upset against the Warriors. It's going to go back to Fiserv. It's going to come down to Giannis's play, Middleton's play, and Brook Lopez's play to beat the Warriors and shut them down and win their first title since the 1970s.
We'll see how great Giannis is
We'll see.
when
If
he
can-
plays
if he
in this
can win it-
finals.
If he wins it, he gets the MVP, hands down. That's all we have for you today. This is the final show of the academic year for us. We want to thank all the seniors and congratulate them on everything they've done here at St. Francis. We wish you the best of luck in the future. We'll see you next year. Have a great day, everyone.